My personal opinion is if you're going to remake something, stick to it at a minimum two generations back, two console generations back. If you wanted to remake, say, a PS3 game, like the Mass Effect remakes, or was it like the Mass Effect remasters, right? They did those. That makes a lot of sense to me because that's usually at least 12 years ago. Somebody who was like 11 at the time might have missed it, but that person is now 23. So it's maybe it wasn't a game designed for their age, but now it is. Going back and playing some of those older games can be difficult. So 2 console generations for me is the optimal amount of time to remake a game.
Hey people, I'm absolutely not ready to start the show, but let's start anyway, and welcome to Weekly Cast 3. That's me, I'm never ready when it's time to start, but that's fine. Adam, can you tell us about Silent Hill 2?
Of course, I can tell you about Silent Hill 2, which drops today if you're in Taiwan, because it's October 8th today. And if you're not in Taiwan, it's tomorrow because it's October 8th tomorrow. So this is a remake of the Silent Hill 2 game, and it is a actual remake, not like the Final Fantasy VII remake. This is a almost one for one, not exactly, but very faithful adaptation from what early reviews are saying. So there are a few things that are changed, but not so much changed as we have things are expanded. For instance, as you're walking through Silent Hill, you probably noticed a whole bunch of buildings and you couldn't really go into them unless they were story relevant. Now, a lot of those areas in the city are explorable. So you can go into the flower shop and all these other places and maybe pick up a little bit of lore there. They have added a little bit extra to expand the lore. They've added a few extra scenes with characters, flesh them out maybe a little bit more. But the meat and bones is basically the same. You're just getting the same Silent Hill. It's just adding a little bit extra on top, a little extra icing on top of your cake. But even then, if you have played the original, you are still in for a few surprises because they do rearrange some of the things. So maybe the order in which, if you've played the game 1,000 times and you've memorized exactly where you need to go, you're going to have to use your brain a little bit because they may have changed the order. Maybe instead of visiting the hospital before, I don't remember the order of things because it's been umpteen years since I played it, but you still go to the hospital, but you might go to it at a different point, and then you'd still have those same scenes, but it might be after a certain event or before a certain event. They've rearranged it, but you're still getting the same story and everything, so that's really exciting. They've improved the combat. Okay, so you get your, now you have the same things you always did. You get your gun, you get your shotgun, you get your board with a nail. I guess you'd call it a nail bat if you wanted to. But still get all those things, but it's a little more punchy with the shooting. It's not quite as far as Dead Space. If you shoot an enemy in the legs, it'll slow him down. It might cause him to stumble and fall on the ground. Where you shoot matters, but of course it's a risk-reward thing because you're shooting at a much smaller target if you're shooting at the legs rather than shooting center of mass. The melee combat was give and take. They swing at the guy, dodge the guy. Some people are saying that the melee it's serviceable, but not the best thing in the world. But we're not here playing Silent Hill for the combat, right? Yeah, a lot of people are really enjoying it. They're saying it's really good and it looks good. Everything, people were giving it a little bit of flack beforehand. They're saying, oh, they made the characters chubby or whatever. But no, a lot of people are saying, no, this looks really good. So it is out. It is on PS5 and PC. Unfortunately, if you're on Xbox, you are going to need to wait, but it is coming. Unfortunately, though, you are going to have to wait a year. I think it's coming out next year in 2025. It might be a while, but it will come eventually. And if you're on Xbox, I do believe you can still play the original one on backwards compatibility. So you can still play that one, and you can still play the original, or maybe the original. I'm not quite sure, but you can also play Silent Hill 3, which you can't do on PS5. The small advantage there. But yeah, I'm super excited. Probably not going to be playing this one this year just because I already have Dead Space and Project Zomboid keeping me busy. I might have to pass up on this one until next year, but that's okay. I'm so happy that it's finally here. As I love Silent Hill. I played it. It was the first Silent Hill I played alone. I played Silent Hill 1 with a friend. So this was the first one I played all by my lonesome. And yeah, it was pretty freaky back then. And I'm sure it's still pretty freaky now, especially with the higher res. So now we can really see the details on some of those gore monsters.
It's quite hard to talk about Silent Hill 2 and not compare it with the Capcom trend of releasing a remake of Resident Evil. And that's been very successful, right? It's releasing a remake in between the new game of the franchise, right? They were not lazy, right? They did a remake and then a new franchise and a new game in the IP. You think that Konami saw that and say, right time to re-release a remake of Silent Hill 2. We're gonna make lots of money because it was a great game at the time. And it seems like people really want to retaste these like pure end of what, the 90s, mid 90s, end of 90s horror games, something like this. Yeah. So how do you think? You think people are gonna be very hyped for this game?
I've seen people comparing it in the kind of the way it's remade is similar to Resident Evil 2, the Resident Evil 2 remake, where it's almost like a one for one, but they do add, or even the Resident Evil 1 remake to an extent, where it is almost a one for one, but they do add a few things as opposed to maybe the Resident Evil 4 remake, where it was just seemed like completely overhauled. Same story, but very much overhauled. So, but yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. I think for me, I'm not a fan of remakes. Like, for instance, the Horizon Zero Dawn is getting a remake. And I know people are saying, like, hey, it looks great. And I agree, it probably does. But I don't personally see a point in remaking something that's that young. My personal opinion is if you're going to remake something, stick to it at a minimum two generations back, two console generations back. If you wanted to remake, say, a PS3 game, like the Mass Effect remakes, or was it like the Mass Effect remasters, right? They did those. That makes a lot of sense to me because that's usually at least 12 years ago. So somebody who was like 11 at the time might have missed it, but that person is now 23. So it's maybe wasn't a game designed for their age, but now it is. Going back and playing some of those older games can be difficult. So 2 console generations for me is the optimal amount of time to remake a game. I would not remake a game that's less than 10 years old. To me, that's still playable. Granted, I'm a bit older, so I have a couple 10 years as it's a couple decades under my belt, so it doesn't seem quite as long to me. But this is the perfect kind of game that I would expect a remake for. And this is the perfect way I want remakes. I want something that's faithful to the original because, again, same with Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's a great game. I really enjoy playing it. It's a lot of fun, but it does all those changes split the fan base and it gets really nasty. And I like something where you can bring new people on board and we're all on the same page and we're all getting the same kind of thing out of it. And I think that unites a fan base. And I think that is a much better way to do it than to just completely reboot something and then expect everyone to be on board with it. So I am 100% behind Silent Hill 2 remake. It's a remake. It's not a remaster. So
What about you, Korean? Did you follow this IP at all? Or like me, that's weird. But hey, so maybe tell us about something less freaky. You have a top 10 for us?
I love that transition. Yes, I have a top 10 and I will need you guys help for this because you guys are the gaming experts and people who are knowledgeable when it comes to a lot of things. This is a list from CBR. CBR is Comic Book Review, for those of you who don't know. They're somewhat of a questionable publication at times, but the list is still interesting from a philosophical perspective. So these are the top 10 hardest RPGs of all time ranked. Now, I've heard about like half of these. I think the rest, Adam and Antoine together, would have collectively heard about them from. So number 10 is The Last Remnant, which I have no idea about. So I'll let Adam, looks like he knows what The Last Remnant is about.
yeah, Last Remnant was in that phase where it was like the Final Fantasy that's not a Final Fantasy. We got a few of those type games. And I believe it was on Xbox originally. But yeah, I never played it. I've seen it. I've seen a lot of people really enjoy it. I think, I might even have it on PlayStation because they remastered it recently. And I might have it. I might have picked it up on a sale. Let me see. The Last Remnant. Or I think this one also had different. Nope, I have not picked it up yet. It is currently 540 NT, so it's really cheap.
Korean, I think you're
But,
gonna fill my backlog with all this with this top 10. It's
yeah,
really
this
cool.
one's really old. Yeah, this one's back in the Xbox 360 era. But I don't know too much about it, but I remember seeing it. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of people really like it. So
Moving on to number 9, Divinity Original Sin, which is I felt was much easier than number 1. Number 1, I felt like towards the end of number 1, the battles just got extremely long, especially if you didn't optimize your characters, because some people just had resistances to everything. And if you're like me, when I play a lot of games, I really like, okay, this is probably useful. I should prepare this for the future. But I didn't do that. And move on to number 8 is Gothic is a challenging retro medieval experience. So I remember the Gothic game, but as far as a name, I don't remember anything about the game. Anyone want to chime in about Gothic if you know a little bit more about it? No? Okay, we'll move on to number 7. Number 7, Final Fantasy Tactics is the most challenging game in the Final Fantasy franchise. Go ahead, Adam.
I didn't find it that hard at all.
I wanted to ask you when I saw the title, I was like, you never mentioned it being hard.
No.
And now I'm like, I saw this, I'm like, oh God, maybe I need to remove it from my Switch wish list.
No, I never thought of Tactics as being hard. I felt Tactics Ogre was harder than Final Fantasy Tactics, mostly because of the way leveling is done in Tactics Ogre. But I could see the one thing that is nice about Final Fantasy Tactics is that I could see if you're just going through the game really quickly, yeah, it could be really hard. But if you're leveling, what they did was they would have it that enemies would have, or the story content had if I remember correctly, had a base level. The character at minimum will be level 20. But if you hit level 20 and go above it, then they'll level up with you. The content will always be above or at your level. It'll never be below your level. If you're not leveling, you're not going to keep pace, and you might end up with something that you're fighting this level 30 boss and you're level 23. But if you're level 35, that boss is also going to be level 35. So the content, you'll never steamroll anything in that game. You'll never outpace stuff. And there are cases where you could get screwed in certain combat scenarios. If you come up against a chocobo flock and they have they're 3 red chocobos and they're just dropping meteors on your head, there's nothing you can do about that. It's just, that's life at that point. You will die, but I don't consider it like extensively hard. That said, there are, what some people might have found difficulty in is, like I said, there are minimum levels for certain boss fights. And there are a couple occasions where you'll go into a fight, and then at the end of that fight, you'll immediately go into another fight. Meaning that if you don't have a second save, you're soft locked, and if you're underleveled, you're underleveled, and there's nothing you can do about it. If you're playing Final Fantasy Tactics, my advice is always have a second save on the overworld map. And if you go into a fight and then you win that fight and they go into a second fight, don't save over that first thing, because you might want to back out and go back and do some grinding. But if you do that, it's not hard.
Anton, what about you? What's the most difficult Final Fantasy game?
Difficult in general, like it's just a question of grinding, like he said. Tactics traumatized me as a child because it's the first game in the Final Fantasy where you had permadeath. So you grind and you get level, and then because you made a mistake and one of your character fall, and 3 turns after you didn't have time to raise it because he's beyond the line and he dies. And I was like, he's just knocked out, right? I'm gonna get it after the fight. I said it's gone. Pissed me off so much. You have no clue. I believe I just didn't. I put the cartridge out, and I never played it again. So, yeah, that's basically. I don't know if it was hard or not because I never finished it in the end.
Okay, moving on to number 6, Dragon Quest II is the most difficult game in the series. Dragon Quest is an iconic series. It is a Nintendo series. I don't know, again, I'm not a game lore or historian person. I don't remember anything, but I do know the Dragon Quest series. If you go into any sort of Nintendo shop or PlayAsia or other places you buy your Nintendo games from, you'll see Dragon Quest and a Roman numeral next to it, and you might even see a whole shelf of those games. Because there are that many games in the series. Number 5, Neo is a stellar samurai experience. So Neo is the number 5th hardest RPG of all time. Adam is agreeing. And in the interest of time, I'm going to keep going. Number 4, Bloodborne is the pinnacle of Souls-like games. Again, not played, but I don't know. I think I can imagine some other people would argue about that. Number 3, I'll let you guys guess. I'll try and do an Antoine here, but I'm not a good guess for giving clues. It is a famous Japanese game that was recently remastered. It is a 3-word Japanese name. The name is something to do with night and horror. Antoine has mentioned this game before, and it is there is no number for this game. Oh, okay, this is an Atlas franchise.
Atlas.
Yes. So it says Atlas is a more mainstream franchise, is the Persona series. The most challenging games that the company has released are part of the series. Much like Persona, this 3-word is a dungeon crawling turn-based RPG. However, unlike its more popular counterpart, Three Word is
So-
well known to be one of the most difficult series in the RPG genre.
Shin Megami Tensei?
Yes.
Which one?
They
Shin
said
Megami
Tensei.
Tensei.
Nocturne, I would
Yes,
guess.
Nocturne is yes.
Ah.
That is the number 3rd most difficult RPG of all time. Number 2 is that this is something from our early childhoods, like late 80s, early 90s. I don't know if you guys remember the series called Wizardry.
Sorry.
So Wizardry 4 is the hardest game in a lengthy series. This was the days when computers had 16 colors or something like that, like back in the late 80s. I remember our first computer. So this is number 2. And number 1, which I already told the guys, is Darkest Dungeon, the hardest RPG of all time. I don't know if, I feel like Antoine played this, if I'm not mistaken. I played this multiple times and I've never finished it. I think each time I play this, I played it for 3 hours and I'm like, oh my God, you're so pretty, but you're so dark and gloomy and grimy. And again, it does say Darkest Dungeon after all. And I played, I'm like, oh. And then as you get into the game 1 hour after 2 hours, you guys develop psychological problems. And this game would just make you more difficult. You never build up enough power to say, yes, I can steamroll a dungeon or I can get this stuff. So this is just one of those games where I'm like, I love roguelike games. I don't like roguelike games, which makes you feel like I have to come home or I have to log off after work and fight again to survive. No, thank you. But no, if you love hard games, Darkest Dungeon is apparently the most difficult game in the world in all history of gaming.
I'm gonna talk about our good friend of Monolith. So that's the rumor which is hiking on the new Switch console, dubbed Switch 2, for lack of a better term, which is gonna come in 2025. And if you are a fan of the Xenoblade Chronicle franchise, I am. That's pretty good news for us because I was pretty sure that Xenoblade would end up with a third opus. DLC, I believe, was released last year in 2023. And now, so I'm going to get the name, Tetsuya Takahashi, which is a chief creative officer, is telling us that they are working on a new game engine, which presumably would be for the new hardware coming up with Nintendo. If you don't know, Monolith created in 2010 an engine for Xenoblade Chronicle, XCX, Xenoblade Chronicle X. So the XCX XCX engine. And based on this engine, right now they are creating a new one. He's explaining why he's doing this rather than taking someone else's engine. He says, and I quote, "We don't currently have the option of using engines made by other companies. This is because in-house engines are easier to customize to suit our needs and are easier to use." And typically, of course, the XCX engine has been used for Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3. And despite this, you can see the evolution between 2010 and 2023, clearly different. So that's why they decided to make the investment, which is a big investment, right? So that's the announcement they made. And that's pretty exciting to... We don't know yet, of course, that it's a Xenoblade Chronicle 4 that's going to hit the market, but we can presumably think that it would be. Although you have to understand that it's not going to be on the market right away because it has been, I can't remember when the first one was released, but number 2 was released in 2017, number 3 in 2022. So there has been 5 years in between both games. And it was, I think, on the same console with the same engine. Here, you were starting to work on a console that they may have already access, at least on the specification on how to create the game, but they have to, if they started already the project, which I'm sure they did, that means they would have to reuse the new engine to remake the asset, remake a lot of things. So I don't believe we're going to see one until at least 2028, which it would be the very minimum, I think, to develop a brand new game. But at least if you are a fan of the franchise like I am, I'm a late bloomer on that front because I started the Chronicle 1 last Christmas and I really fell in love with it. It's a really good franchise. At least you know that another one is coming, not like a Titanfall or this kind of game. I consider this a very good news for the fan of Nintendo franchise and can't wait to play it on Switch 2, which would be already on discount in 2028, right? So Yeah, so that's it for my first story. Not much, but just bring you some hope to see some great Nintendo IPs coming back in the future. And with this, we're going to move to Alan, who's going to talk about a brand new game, which is not released yet, but will be soon. And you don't have to wait 2028 to play it.
You do not have to wait till 2028 to play, and you can play it, in fact, right now. So the game is Metaphor ReFantasio, and you might have heard of it because this is a game that's made by the same people that do Persona and Shin Megami Tensei and all those other great games. So this one's a little bit different, though. This one, most of their games typically have modern settings. They take place in either modern day Japan or wherever, and they're fighting gods and that sort of thing. This one is actually a fantasy game. So this one is going to be set in a fantasy world, and it's not going to be as familiar. It's not going to be about high school children this time. Either you're excited about that or you're not. I don't know. But this time it's going to be completely in the fantasy realm. And it's actually supposedly pretty interesting. They have some mechanics that are going to make it a little bit easier on you if you're the kind of person. It is a turn-based game. If you're the kind of person that laments the fact that a lot of games are going action, you can look at this one. If you're the kind of person who does not turn-based, if you've out-leveled enemies, you can just run up right behind them and instantly take them out, similar to what you could do in Persona 5. So you can save some time on your grinding. You don't have to fight every single battle if it's just taking out the trash. Also, they do allow you to ambush enemies or even attack enemies on the overworld map, which, if you do, will give you advantages in combat. It's a little combination of real time for a brief second, and then you jump into your turn-based combat. That's really exciting. They do not have a Persona. Persona. They do not have a Persona system where you have all your demons and stuff. This time, the way your characters are going to be working is they have what are called archetypes, which are basically your classes. So you can have a knight, ninja, wizard, that sort of thing. And then what you can do is you unlock new classes. You can mix and match what spells you're putting on what or putting on who. And then by doing that, you can improve your characters and expand what your capabilities are. It does, though, still have the social links system that you have in Persona. So you will still be going out and hanging out with your friends and getting to know them a little bit better. And that's how you're going to be unlocking these new classes and whatnot. Because obviously, if your friend is some kind of knight, you're going to be unlocking the nightly kind of classes and stuff like that from that person. From what I've heard, there are maybe fewer of these social links than you would typically have in a Persona game where you just have tons and tons. And from what I've heard, there are no romance options in this time. So it is more about building your relationship just as a friendship and as a party. So that's going to be more of the focus here. Yeah, so you still have all of that, but also then you have synergy abilities, same as what you had in Persona with the show times. And what's interesting here is that what's going to matter is which characters you have, just as in Persona, but it's actually also going to matter on what classes are equipped to those characters. So if you get, if one character is a ninja and the other one's a wizard, you might get a certain showtime with those two people. But if the first guy changes from a ninja to a knight, and now you have a knight and a wizard, those two characters are going to have a different kind of synergy attack. So that's interesting too. And what makes this most exciting, though, is that this game does have a bit of a prologue. So the setup is that there was a king died. His son went into kind of a deep sleep. So he's been in like a magical coma. He's been cursed. And that means that the kingdom is without a king. And so what they're doing is there's not quite a civil war. It's a more like a competition kind of thing, but they're trying to see who's going to become the new king while the current prince is in his coma. And you, being a friend of that prince, are vying for the throne so that you can basically keep it for him and try to figure out who cursed him in the first place. So that's the setup. And you can currently, right now, go anywhere, Xbox, PC, PlayStation, and you can play the prologue. So you can go through the first chapter of the game. You can play it multiple times if you want. And when you're done, when the game does finally release on October 31st, so you only have to wait until the end of the month, then you can just skip that part and skip straight into chapter 1, or you could play the prologue again if you wanted to. But yeah, if you're the kind of person who's a big fan of Persona, the Shin Megami Tensei, those sort of games, then definitely give this one a look. It's definitely got it's got the same DNA in it. It's not exactly the same, but if you're a fan of those games, you're gonna be a fan of this game. So definitely give it a look. And it's a demo. It's free, so you lose nothing if you don't like
And don't
it.
forget that, sorry, don't forget
100%.
that Atlus makes one of the best music in video games ever.
Yes, I've heard good things about the music.
Do you know if there in this game there will be a question of timing that there was like in Persona 5?
Yes, it does have a calendar similar to the other games, basically because you're on this quest to get the king, save the throne or whatever. So there is a time component, there is a calendar. You are going to be progressing through the story. You do dungeons, you meet your social links, you talk to people, and that sort of thing. So that does return. So you are on a schedule.
Frustration come back. All right. Thanks for that piece of news. And with this, let's turn to Korean, who's going to talk about a game that I've seen on Steam a few times and I'm very interested about. So take us off.
Sure. Today, as usual, looking for stories, checking out Google Trends, I came upon Steam DB, which is always, or Steam Charts is another choice, to say, hey, I'm looking for a game. And if you're not looking at middle-aged gaming to find some good game ideas, you can always check out those places. And I'm like, oh, what's this game that was like number 16 or number 17 on Steam DB? TCG Card Simulator. And then I clicked on the link. I'm like, oh, this looks familiar. Because I've seen not a few, maybe one or two YouTubers play this and, hey, this is very cool. So this game is the idea. I never got to experience this as a kid growing up in South Africa, but in the States, yes, where you can go into a shop and they sell card booster packs and like other different sort of card games. Spellforce was the game I used to like back like 30 years ago or 20 years ago. And of course, everyone, if you're on YouTube a lot, you'd know about Pokemon cards, right? And there are so many Pokemon YouTubers who basically you go to their channel and they just open up card packs and they pull like an amazing Charizard, blah, blah, blah card. And it's, oh my God, it's $5,000. And they resell the card and they make some money. This is just literally what this experience is. It's basically you open up your own card gaming shop. People come into your shop, they buy card booster packs, you earn money from that. They sit there, they play games. And in the video themselves, right, like one of the coolest things, you have to maintain the hygiene of the place. And the guy takes like this body spray or whatever sort of spray and is, oh my God, this guy stinks. I'm going to spray him and now he's fine. And he can continue playing games in my shop, which I thought was hilarious. It is an early access game. It is another sort of simulated game made by a very small team. If I'm not mistaken, it's just a single person. Like this guy has a roadmap. He said roughly about a year. It's roughly about $7 Taiwanese. I think it's probably more along the $10 mark if you're looking at the States, or higher for Canadians or maybe even the States, I imagine. But $7 here in Taiwan, so pretty affordable. And if you're into those simulated games, it's definitely well worth it. Even more worth it because there is some really cool art in terms of the cards and stuff that you can buy in the game because you can actually play the game. So like when you're selling booster packs, you have a choice of saying, hey, I'm going to buy my own booster packs at cost and open them up. I can keep these cards and resell individual cards. Again, if you're familiar with that sort of space, that is what people do. People go to conventions and they sell these extra cards that they have that they find from opening up booster packs, and people make some good money from that, right? So it's a really cool dynamic of almost similar to a board gaming cafe that you might see here in Taiwan. I'd never see them outside of Taiwan, so I'm not sure if that's a thing outside of Taiwan. But yeah, again, similar idea of come to my store, buy my booster packs, buy my cards, sit there, play with your friends. At some point on the roadmap is, yeah, you're here, you need to buy a drink, you need to buy some food in order to be here, right? So it's that sort of experience, and it's about 40,000 people playing this game at the moment. Like the guys and I were talking about Halo Infinite, right? And it's unfortunate fall. And Halo Infinite is like less than 3,000 people as of yesterday were playing the game. And this sort of tells you like again, how important the large numbers are to continued game development. But yeah, this is an amazing game, very much for people who want something relaxing. Again, someone like me who plays Coral Island, not too stressful, very easy going, lots of places to save. There's about a good 20 to 25 hours of content at the moment. So again, if you're playing an hour a day like I am, that's 25 days. That's about a month. And then come to the end of October and Dragon Age Veilguard is out, or the other Life is Strange games coming out at the end of this month at the same time. If you are playing it or you have played it, let us know down in the comments. I'd love to hear. And that's it.
And to add to this, so yes, it's starting to get increasingly popular in Canada. Actually, there's a shop which opened last year, not too far from me, and I'm not in the city center of Montreal. I'm a bit outside, so yes, getting popular. It's $17 Canadian. So I guess you're not too far with your 10 US dollar. And last thing is that on Steam, it's overwhelmingly positive, which means it's a very good choice. So yeah, go ahead. And I'm working my transitions today, so let's go with this. You get it at $17 on Steam, but maybe you could have it cheaper on Instant Gaming. So, full disclaimer, yes, I'm going to talk about instant gaming. Full disclaimer, this is not an advertisement. It's very likely going to sound like an advertisement because I'm using it quite often and I saved a lot of money out of it, but it's not a paid advertisement for this company, right? Why I want to talk about it is because I realized that in my friends who play video games quite often, they usually know of it. Some of them actually didn't, but don't necessarily trust it. So I decided to spare 5 minutes and talk to you about what this is about. So Instant Gaming is a website, right? Where you can buy your games DLC for PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox S, X, and Switch. You can also buy gift cards if there's a birthday coming or you don't know what to buy your nephew for Christmas. You can buy a gift card for Nintendo, whatever in there. You can also buy your subscription, Nintendo Online, Xbox Game Pass, all of this, you can buy it over there. And of course, you buy it as a discount as the whole point of it. You can also buy your pre-orders on this website. So if there's a game that you really want to get, which releases in 3 months, go on Instant Gaming, check the price. Very likely it's cheaper than you're going to get it on Steam or your console website. Also, on the term of on safety, it's totally safe, right? We should trust this. They have a score 4.7 out of 5 on Trustpilot. From personal experience, I use it quite often and never had any problem. And if you worry that, true story, right? That happened to me. I moved from Ireland to Canada. So I moved from European store to US based. And originally I bought was Civilization 6, I think. Yeah, 6 at the time, right? 2015, 2016. And I bought the European version, which I couldn't install here, of course. And I got it redeemed very easily. Not redeemed, sorry, refunded very easily. So no problem there. And the customer service was quite good. So honestly, if you're afraid of using this website, it's 100% safe. So the point, I'm going to give you an example on this page. If you want popular game, like for instance, FC25, I think it was FIFA or whatever before. Yeah, FIFA 25, now it's called FC25 on Xbox. And you don't want to buy there because you're on Xbox, you buy this on a PC, you don't know how it works. It's very easy. You just go on Instant Gaming, click on Xbox, click on the game that you want, in this case FC25, and one of the first link you will have is the installation. Click on the game and you have an installation link, one of the first link you have. And it will give you a step-by-step video there, so you really can make it easier on how to redeem and install your new purchase. I have saved myself over the year, and I don't use it very often, but very lately I use it to buy Space Marine 2. Overall, I saved $400. It doesn't sound much, but that's because usually Steam sales, it's where I buy my stuff, and it's much better on Steam sale. But in between Steam sales of Black Friday or things like this, that's an excellent website to buy your video game for cheap. So honestly, if you don't know Instant Gaming, I honestly recommend that you try. You're going to make lots of savings. And even better, if you can buy your games with our link, I said we are not sponsored, but you can still support us by buying games through our Instant Gaming link. Please do. We're going to try to put it in the description of the video. And that'd be great for you, great for us, everybody wins. So that's it for my second story. And I think with this, we hit the end of the show right on time at 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. for you, 10 p.m. for me. Guys, is there anything you want to add for today's show?
I'll chime in on the instant gaming thing. I know one of the things that I'm not aware of, but as a Taiwanese person, right, we have worse exchange rates with euros compared to dollars. And when you go to instant gaming, you just see euro prices for the first time. Again, which is not great. You know, oh my God, this is euro price, so this is gonna cost me more because the exchange rate costs more when you're doing euros to Taiwanese dollar transactions. But while instant gaming does not support Taiwanese dollars, it does support US dollars, which does make it a pretty good deal as well. The second thing as well is any new site, as someone as an older gamer, you're like, I need 2FA. Because again, people hack you, there are attacks on local infrastructure and stuff, depending where you live. 2FA is offered in instant gaming, so you can be secure to the fact that if someone is going to access the instant gaming account, they will need your phone, or they'll need that 6-digit code that you get to your mobile phone or your 1Password app or your Wallet app, whatever app you're using for your 2FA. Secured access and US dollars, it's a no-brainer if you're looking for an alternative.
Thank you very much. Yes, and with this, I think we hit the end of the show. So are you guys planning to stream anything this week?
I mean, I'm always streaming something, right? I did Project Zomboid yesterday. I'll do Dead Space tomorrow, and I'll do Dead Space on Friday. And I'm going through it a lot faster than I thought. So I actually had to stop myself from playing offline because I'm like, oh, I don't want to finish this game. Yeah, I'm around chapter 4 or 5. I think maybe 5. I think I'm in chapter 5. So I'll be streaming those two until the end of October. And then we'll get Slitterhead, and then I'll be streaming that. But that's not until November.
Okay, so that's your... I wanted to ask for your Halloween calendar, but that's perfect. Thank you.
Oh, Antar, maybe you want to talk about the changes to content for the next 3 months.
Go ahead then. I put you on the spot.
Okay, we had a chat this past weekend, the three of us, and we came to a decision because we do want to grow. And as much as this is a hobby that we do part-time, at least for me, this is something I'd like to do full-time. This is an extension of teaching in a sense, in that you're content creating for people on the internet in a much wider spectrum than in a classroom filled with third graders or high schoolers or adults, as Adam sometimes does these days, I imagine. So to that effect, as you probably know, and if you've been watching us, if you've caught the odd episode or two, I'm a big short content fan. I spend 8 hours of YouTube a week, according to my iPhone, just like literally scrolling through shorts all the time. And I watch so much shorts, I watch them on 3 different platforms. That being said, as much as I love shorts, it hasn't been much of a viable option. So going forward, starting from today, we're just going to release the weekly quest today. No singular videos, just for 3 months, just to see how it does. There will still be shorts directing you to the weekly quest, that if you are a short person, you can see them on Instagram and YouTube if you're not a YouTube person, so they're still on Instagram. And then starting in November, we'll have one amazing, wonderful video released by Adam. And I've already seen some really cool shorts that I love, and I wish I could do them at that quality for that video as well. And so we'll have a video from Adam January, December, and February. December, January, and February. I don't know why I said it that order. And then come end of Chinese New Year, which will be the end of January, beginning of February, we will see how it does. Is it working? And then we might go back to the drawing board going forward. So if you're looking for our content, basically what you're going to see going forward is you're going to see one weekly quest video from me. I'll be doing the editing, the publishing, the social media, 7 shorts potentially, maybe not even tied to a particular news story, just something that the guy said that was really cool and funny. And then you'll get one big high quality video every month until the end of Chinese New Year in 2020.
And to that point, it's even more important now that you please share and subscribe and leave comments, because we are at a spot where we need to grow our community. We want actually to exchange with you, either on YouTube or Discord. Yes, we do have a Discord. I know that it's not very known, but yes, we do have a Discord, and we'll send you the link maybe in a poll or something one of these days. But yes, so please help us. That'd be absolutely great for us. And we thank you very much for this. And with this, we wish you in Canada a great night. If you're in Asia, a great morning. And see you next week for Weekly Quest 4, I believe.
See you guys later.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.